Well, good afternoon, Anna. How are you today?
Well, good morning, Richard. I am very well and very nice to talk to you here.
Very nice to speak with you as well. Very nice to meet you. Yes, we're on a little bit different sides of the globe right now. So, morning for me and afternoon for you. But welcome to Meeting You podcast. Folks, we are joined by Anna Malmhake, the CEO of Oriflame, which I've done a lot of reading about. I love what you have done with the organization since you have taken on your leadership role there. I'm really excited today to talk to you about your very remarkable career journey. I'm gonna start off just by saying my daughter is a big fan of Swedish fashion and Swedish. So you probably know where I'm going with this. She's 24. She's really into Dejerf Avenue, and this is like her big brand that she's like spending all her money on right now. But it is very exciting to see some young sort of Swedish influence in fashion kind of transforming here over the pond to the United States.
It's a great way for us Swedes sometimes to rediscover things in our heritage. Here in the UK right now, you have Scandinavian candy
Ah,
everywhere.
that's
The thing I
crazy.
took for granted as a kid is now super hyped.
That's funny. That's really funny. Well, again, I'm really excited. You've been at the forefront, Anna, of some of the world's most iconic brands. Here on this show, we love to talk about experiences and lessons learned. A lot of the women that listen to the show are at sometimes a pivotal point in their career. They're trying to understand what's next for them. They're trying to potentially pivot, use all of that lived experience into shaping a new experience, or they have new interests that have maybe help them to be transformational. You've had a lot of transformation along the way, but I want to start back up. I want to back up a little bit. Growing up in Sweden, we just kind of mentioned the resurgence of Swedish culture, but as you kind of shaped your worldview and the things you studied at university when you kind of focused on some unique subjects, tell me about where you kind of realized that global business might be part of your path, Anna.
Oh, that took a very long time. I remember being at university seeing recruitment posters for companies like Procter& Gamble and thinking,
Okay.
well, it's not really for me. That was a pretty long journey. But I have to say, talking about Swedish heritage, there's a lot of things that I am now very, very grateful for that I didn't realize as I grew up. For
Mm,
example, Sweden, when I was growing up, had astonishing equality between men and
mm,
women.
mm.
And that I am retroactively so grateful for, though I took it
Sure.
for granted when I grew up.
Mm. I know when I was at university myself, and I would go to recruiting events, like you said, and I can specifically remember like Kimberly Clark coming to campus and trying to recruit, and I didn't even know what they did, but I realized later that they had all of these brands, but I didn't realize who they were, but I knew all of their brands per se, right? So you began your career at P&G, Procter and Gamble. You said this was a great training ground for you. I look back at myself and say that I have a missed opportunity to get more involved in marketing and brand management. Talk about some of your training ground in those early days at P&G, Anna.
I am so grateful for those years,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad that fate gave me that opportunity, though I wasn't paying attention to the recruitment. I still remember walking into Procter& and Gamble, and I had preconceived notions how it would
Sure.
be, and I met incredible people that I immediately really liked.
Mm.
And I think my biggest learning from Procter& and Gamble, I can actually exemplify it with my first week. So there I am with a university degree, and the first thing I'm asked is to go out to a store, a
Mhm.
grocery store, and spend days observing and talking to people in the
Oh,
aisles.
I love this.
I was so shocked. Was this why I went to university? And now I am so grateful. I think that completely clear idea companies like Procter& and Gamble has that you work to serve consumers
Mhm.
is the best lesson anyone ever can get. So continuing at the Coca-Cola company where I, as the marketing director, was with the finance director out cleaning fridges,
Yeah.
again in grocery stores. I constantly think back to all of that, and I'm so grateful for those companies and the consumer centricity they always had. When you then come to other environments where some people have made careers sitting in offices, looking at
Sure.
PowerPoint and
Sure.
Excel, it's a superpower,
Yeah.
knowing the actual business.
Yeah. Did people actually speak with you in those grocery aisles?
Yeah, I mean, I had to make sure they did. So, I started off doing a lot of consumer insights, got trained to lead focus groups. I got a chance to try all aspects really of consumer
Mm,
insights. And I am so grateful for that. Today,
mm,
we have 3 million people all around the world
mm.
uh, who are part of the Oriflame community. Many of them are very active, basically as a fantastic entrepreneurial sales force. And I am so glad that I have those experiences of
Sure.
talking to people and finding out what's working for them and what's not working for them.
I love that. As I teach entrepreneurship here at the University of Massachusetts, and we had some students who were working on a product for the pet industry. And Anna, we said the same thing. We said, please go to a pet store
Mhm.
and please stand in the aisles. And as people are coming through the pet store, ask them questions. Ask them, why are they here? What are they looking for? What brought them here today? What kind of pet do they have? Just to kind of bring all of that to life for you and understand, okay, the thing that the consumer product that I'm building and wanting to bring to the market for the pet industry, am I going down the right path? Correct. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
I think you were so right to
Mm.
strongly recommend that.
Yeah.
And I would say empathy in a
Yeah.
consumer goods business, if you don't have that, you really have nothing to build a sustainable business with.
Anna, one of my very close friends is a category distribution director for Heineken USA. So he spent his entire career in the spirit industry. You were a part of Absolut when it became, I think, one of the most culturally iconic brands in the world. One of the things that I really appreciated Absolut did was there was an art, right? There was the art that even in the packaging, the bottles, the art, the identity, storytelling. You had to work, I'm sure, to make a strong emotional connection and build that community. Is there a way that you could summarize how you thought about that, Anna?
Well, I have to first of all say the history of that brand is amazing, and it
Yeah.
actually goes back to Sweden in the 1800s, though most
Mm,
people internationally are not aware of that.
mm,
And the brilliance from the 80s, when the brand was launched in the US, is second to none.
yeah,
So, of course, working for Absolut, you get super inspired.
yeah,
I It has always been a very courageous brand.
mm,
If I take just one example, I mean, a lot of art is connected to Absolut, but the
mm.
truth is that Absolut supported that art before the artist in
Oh, wow.
question was really famous.
Interesting,
S-
interesting.
So there was a lot of bravery. But
Mm,
after a while, people lose that context. And
mm,
when I was brought into the brand, people were thinking, well, Absolut works with famous artists, so let's
yeah.
work with famous artists. But that was actually wrong. Absolut was discovering artists.
Yeah.
So we had to get back to that idea of
Mm,
being at the forefront, not
mhm,
celebrating what was already successful, but helping talented people to become successful. So I think that sometimes happens. You look at the history of a brand with perfect vision on what worked and what didn't work, and then you
mm.
will keep doing the things that have been working. But very often, very successful brands have been breaking ground. So you have to work out what was the essence of that groundbreaking and how do you do that today, different way.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
this is one of the reasons I love brands with a long history because
History, yeah,
you have to work out if that had started today, how would that have looked?
yeah. I love the
So
historical identity that you think a lot about that deep historical identity when you're leading, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, most people won't know this about Absolut, but the founder of Absolut Vodka in Sweden in the 1800s, he supported young artists.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
wasn't something someone made up in New York in
Mm,
the
yeah,
1980s. It was
yeah,
just taking something already existing,
yeah.
refreshing it, and making it global. I love those stories.
I love that too, yeah. As I was preparing for our conversation, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos and things and, really enjoying a lot of the content that you and Oriflame have out there. I wanna talk a little bit about your brand. I wanna talk a little bit about what you are doing, really kind of I think, you've gone from spirits to gaming to beauty. There's a lot of reinvention there, and I love that about you. As I mentioned earlier, some of the women listening to the show are thinking about reinvention. But let's talk about Oriflame for a moment. Can you give us a little bit of a walk through through the brand?
Yeah, oh, with
Yeah.
huge pleasure. It is also, we're celebrating next year 60 years of history.
Wow.
So, the two founding brothers in the 60s had an epiphany.
Mhm,
They realized that Sweden was filled with people who had a lot of entrepreneurship spirit and a
mhm.
lot of ambition, but they might, for example, have been housewives. And they
Sure,
weren't really given those opportunities, or they
sure,
might not
yeah.
have had the money to go to a
The means, yeah,
university. Yeah, yeah.
right, yeah.
So they just started giving the opportunity,
Mhm,
um, for those people to flourish.
mm,
And that is the heart of the brand still today. You can start from scratch
yeah,
and build a business. And for me, I think the special pleasure is when I travel the world. I
yeah.
met some pretty brilliant people at some pretty big international companies,
I
and then
bet.
I get to
Mhm.
go to, um, for example, Indonesia and sit and talk to a young lady, and I go, "Wow, if you had been born somewhere else, you would have been head of
Mhm.
Coca-Cola EMEA by now."
Right.
Uh, so I love the fact that the company is built on this meritocracy,
Yeah,
complete meritocracy, uh, and no ideas about who will become a fantastic entrepreneur and who won't. It's completely up to the individual. I love that part of Oriflame. So I get to meet incredible people every day, and many of them have come up through circumstances that, whew, it's really inspiring.
I bet,
Um,
I bet, yeah, and I so appreciate that you are not thinking about this with any preconceived notions, right? It's just like, this opportunity is open to everyone, like you said, and it your circumstances are not on your control, so but you're taking the effort to do something, and you wanna provide them with the mechanism, the avenue, the path for them to do something, so I really appreciate that you don't have any preconceived notions around, like, "Look, anybody can potentially do this," right? You just have to kinda lean in, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I take, and this is a strong personal viewpoint now, but I take a lot of pleasure in the fact that, when we put someone on a stage and celebrate an achievement, they've
Mhm.
made that achievement,
Yeah.
and everyone knows it's completely fair and equal.
Mhm.
So, uh, when if someone has, their English isn't great, or they have a handicap, or when
Mhm.
they're up on that stage, they have achieved exactly the same thing as the
Right.
person next to them. And
Yeah.
personally, I love it because I'm a big believer in diversity, but from the standpoint that actually, you never know what
Yeah.
talent and success looks like.
Yeah.
And to get to see it in many shapes and forms, that's super inspiring.
One of the things I love to ask my guests, Anna, is their definition of success and what defines success for them. But I think you just kinda told us, but I I appreciate how you say this, how it looks so it's the meritocracy, right, is so important there. But, so is it fair to say that, at this stage in your career, you really could have probably done anything? I mean, when we look at the consumer brands that you've been at the either the helm of or close to the helm of, is that what attracted you to Oriflame? Is it the emotionality of the all of that?
I very much that because I
Mhm.
had been on the board, so I had
Mhm.
an inkling.
Okay.
But what also attracted me, to be very honest, is uh, it's an important Swedish international
Yeah.
brand. You know, if you're
Yes.
Swedish, there are not so many brands that have made
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
internationally. So to get a chance to work on another Swedish brand meant a lot to me as well.
That's great. Yeah, really must have felt a lot of pride in that, right? I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. Hey, former Saab owner right here, so love the Swedish products.
Oh, fantastic cars.
I want to talk to you a little about consumerism and through the lens now of your your expertise in beauty wellness. It's a rapidly evolving industry, right? We see a lot of AI driven personalization. We see a lot of people kind of questioning sometimes the authenticity, but we also see some goodness, right? We see brands leaning into wellness, into sustainability. Where do you think the beauty industry, the consumer sort of cosmetic industry, where's it going, Anna, and what does it need to be careful of?
I think there's lots of exciting things going on.
Mhm,
Um, I think the level of innovation
mhm,
is fantastic at the
mhm.
moment.
Sure.
Sometimes just for fun, a new consistency on a stick in color cosmetics can be quite fun, actually. But
Sure.
if I look at wellness, where we have a lot, I what I really like is the emphasis on how do I put it? Beauty coming from well-being.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
real
Mhm.
real beauty is energy. It
Yeah.
is people feeling good about
Sure.
themselves.
Sure.
And I love, particularly for us, because we play in advanced skincare, we have wellness and so on. When we combine those products in a really interesting way,
Mm.
like a collagen drink together with a serum and so on,
Mhm.
and being able to look at it holistically, that for me is
Yeah.
a really big step forward. And I think
Sure.
the Scandinavian attitude to beauty, which is a bit less, how do I put it? It focuses a bit more on energy from self-perception than living
Mm.
up to beauty standards,
I
I would
love that.
say.
Yeah.
It's a bit
I love
more
that.
casual and a
Yeah.
bit more, um, wanting to feel and look as yourself,
Yeah.
and I quite like that. I see all around the world more demand for that.
Yeah, and like I said, I watched a lot of the content that you've put out, and I feel a lot of authenticity in what you do, Anna, so it's definitely coming through, and I definitely also saw what you were saying about sort of like, this is coming from within, right? And this is sort of the self aspect of this. I like that a lot.
I'm really
Um
glad to hear that that's coming through. That's
Yeah,
the beauty. I mean, everyone today wants to know, is this for real or not? And that's
sure.
why when we have our community and they put up their reviews and they show how to use the products and so on, I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah,
And
it must be.
that's one of the reasons I love direct selling. I will say
Yeah,
that direct selling invented influencer marketing before anyone invented
right.
social media. It's social
Yeah, the
media
precursor.
catching
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. And imagine if social media had been there at that time, right?
Yeah.
These individuals did it without any of that, right? I think from a global sort of executive leadership perspective, what leaders at your level do, it can kind of look very glamorous from the outside, right? and but I also know because I've been a C level executive myself. It can be isolating, right? It can be lonely. How do you stay sort of grounded on where you're working across multiple countries, multiple cultures, you have a family? How do you keep that, where's your community? How do you kind of keep that together?
So you're so right. You
Mm,
might see a photo on stage. You don't see the frantic things going on 3 seconds before.
Backstage.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
department zip up or, the notes that are lost or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So, you obviously know exactly what I'm talking about. But yes, it can be isolating. You sit on a flight to somewhere you've
Mhm,
never been before, and you're preparing to meet 100 people you haven't met before.
mhm.
So, I think your point about being grounded is really important,
Yeah,
and I think you need a social context that treats you as a person,
yeah.
not as your job. That I had a fantastic mentor years ago, and she told me that it's really important to know the difference between your job
Mhm,
persona
mhm.
and your individuality as a person. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be authentic in your job persona. It just
Of course.
means that you're not the CEO of something 24/7. I
Right.
mean, that would be very unsound.
Sure.
And so I think that is really good. Um,
Yeah,
I have 2 sons. They ground me really well.
I bet. I bet.
And, uh, also personally for me, having a few personal things like hobbies that I actually can
Yeah.
transport.
Mhm.
So I go nowhere without my Kindle. I
Mm.
I have traveled many air miles with the gaming computer,
Sure.
uh, and just to be able to get, even if it's just 10 minutes,
10, 15 minutes. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
is
really helpful. Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, you're so funny. You mentioned the backstage, Anna, and I'll give a quick personal story. I was about to speak in front of like 3,000 people, but the conversation was going to be simulcasted across the whole organization. So there was going to be probably somewhere around 10,000 people watching the broadcast, and I usually don't get nervous, but for that in that moment, I was extremely nervous, and I sent a photo to my wife and I sent it and I said, "Do I look nervous right now?" Because that was the reason, you know. And she's like, "Yeah, you look all right. I think you'll be fine." And you get up on that stage and you do your thing, but like you said, people kind of see the glamorous side, but don't understand sometimes what the sacrifices that aren't discussed publicly, right? For sure.
Yeah. And I mean, people still say, "Oh, travel for business, how glamorous." But if
Mhm.
you've been at Astana Airport in Kazakhstan on a Sunday morning, yeah, it's not as glamorous
That's
as
so glamorous. Yeah. I told you, or a couple of times in the context of our conversation, Anna, that a lot of folks are listening to this kind of thinking about where they're going next. Um, and, you know, it's always dangerous to ask guests for advice, but I am going to ask you for a little bit of advice. If I'm a woman and I'm navigating sort of a leadership transition, I'm trying to think about reinventing myself or maybe taking a chance on myself. It sounds like a lot of women who join the Oriflame community are doing just that. They're taking a chance on themselves. Where do you tell them to start? Like they say, the journey starts with one step. Where do you tell them to start, Anna?
For a lot of people, if I look at the Oriflame community,
Mhm.
they have a lot of beliefs.
Mm.
Um, I Typical story is I followed a friend who does this, but I thought I'm too shy,
Yeah.
or too introvert, or too whatever. Um,
Hmm.
uh, so very often, I find that people, with emphasis on women,
Hmm.
tend to have a lot of preconceived notions on what they can't do before they've even tried.
Interesting.
Selling is an example like that.
Hmm.
Leading is another example like that.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think it is because you've been observing people doing it a certain way. So
Yeah.
your
Hmm.
mental assumption is, so I have to be like that.
Yeah.
And worst case, they've seen, parodies of salespeople in a TV show. And kind of, no, I come across that at times. So selling is pushing. No, selling is listening.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, so I'd say, first of all, don't assume
Hmm.
that something isn't for you based on other people's experiences.
Right.
Try it.
Right.
Um, the other thing is that a lot of people will tell you what they think suits you, and they mean very well. But
Mhm.
again, only you can know that.
Right.
Um, and I would also say really think through what you can keep up energy around.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So I know people look at my career and go, whoa, that's very diverse things. But
Sure.
I've never worked for a company whose products I don't love,
Yeah.
absolutely love.
Yeah.
For me, that's just one of the ways I get a lot of energy. I just
Yeah.
happen to love cocktails, lipstick, computer games.
I tell my students a lot, like, fall in love with your problem because if you don't love it, when the hard days come, you're not going to work on something you don't love, right?
I think that is a great way of putting it. I'm going to steal that way of phrasing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Um, since this is a conversation focused on women in leadership, it wouldn't be fair of me not to ask the question of you've worked in a lot of industries where there's a male dominance, especially at the top, Anna, right? How for you has that kind of kept you true to yourself and grounded within yourself, but also kind of had to navigate instances like that?
I think something that in general is good for some women to work on is to not care so much about what other people think.
Love that.
Um, so of course, people will have opinions, and sometimes
Sure.
they just try having an opinion to see if
Mhm.
you will buckle under pressure.
Mhm.
So, um, don't get too hung up on
Yeah.
validation. I
Mhm.
mean, I had a boss once who said, "You have absolutely no leadership ability.
Hmm. That's crazy.
You better not go into anything that requires leadership."
Wow.
And he was wrong.
Clearly.
Uh, uh, but you have to constantly know to listen and be grateful for feedback.
Mhm.
He thought he was right,
Sure.
um, but because someone else tells you something, it doesn't make it absolutely
Sure.
completely true. So
Yeah.
that advice I would give to a lot of people in general, but women
Yes, but women
specifically.
specifically. Yeah. I like what you just said about stop not caring so much, and I think we're all guilty of that, but I've certainly seen, women in leadership roles in that instance. I talked to someone recently who is trying to bring something to market and believes she's like, "Oh, I have all the technical expertise I need to bring this product to market, but I'm afraid I don't have the leadership skills s in such a way that people will line up behind me." Right? And that kind of broke my heart a little bit that she felt that way, right? And I want her to realize that she can be a leader and she can get people to line up behind her. But it's something that I think it's people need to realize that it is inside them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had a big aha moment. During one phase in my career, several years, I was often asked to talk to women who had turned down promotions,
Mm,
and I made a completely wrong assumption. I thought they were uh, somehow lacking confidence,
yeah,
being scared about it.
sure.
But my big aha was when I actually sat down and talked to several of them. And I started realizing that the only thing keeping them from wanting this job was they generally had role models for leadership who were very
Yeah,
one dimensional. So they had not discovered that you can lead in so many different ways.
sure.
And very often I just try with people, okay, so you say you can't lead. What is it you
Mhm.
think leading is?
Yes.
Uh, and then often I have to give them examples of other leadership styles or, send them off to check on someone else in the organization who is a good leader but leads differently.
Differently. Yeah.
So I I think that's actually kept a lot of women out of careers historically, which is sad. They've only seen a certain way of leadership, very often very what you would call stereotypically male, and then
Right.
they believe that's the only way to lead, and they don't want to be like that,
Yeah.
and they don't have to be
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most eye-opening things that I ever had as a C-level exec was something called a 360-degree review, which is where the other C-suite executives reviewed me as well as individuals throughout the organization at various layers within the organization. And when you get that back and you read it, and it's anonymous, of course, but when you get it back and you read it, it can feel at the same time very energizing, but also at the same time very, very challenging, right?
Of course.
Says a lot about your leadership style. If we were to 360 review you, Anna, around your organization, what would be, what would you hope to hear, I guess?
That is a really tricky
Yeah, tricky
question.
question. Yeah, I'm good
Yeah.
with those.
So I would, of course, naturally say you would have to ask them.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, the feedback I have been given that I have been the most happy about is when people say, "Y you're kind, but you don't allow any nonsense,"
I love
or
that.
"You're
Kind but
very
firm. Yeah.
yeah, you're business focused, but
Mm,
you let people speak."
mhm.
Things like that is my
Yeah.
favorite type of feedback to get.
That's great feedback. Yeah, that's the kind of things you wanna hear is, you're human-centered, you're thoughtful, you're reflective, but at the same time, look, we do have something important that we need to get done here, right?
Yeah, and I think the more what's hard right now, there is a lot of transformation in many businesses, right?
Sure. Mhm.
And that means often you have to move quite fast, and sometimes just being able to explain that you
Yeah,
have to move fast
sure,
on changes and so on. I mean, that's a really tough part of leadership, right now for a lot
sure,
of people.
sure. Yeah, this skepticism is big right now for sure, right? And I think building trust in an era of skepticism is going to continue to be a challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, before we let you go, I know you're very busy, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But when you think a little bit about legacy, I mean, you've been across so many iconic brands. And when I say legacy, I don't mean just in business, but also in people. Where do you hope to kind of leave behind?
If I can have helped talented people to
Mhm.
realize more of what's already in them, that would be my biggest joy.
I love that.
Whether it's been an artist getting some help from Absolut Vodka, or whether it's seeing someone who thought they were too shy to run a
Yep.
business with 200 people. Uh, People very often can so much more than they believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just being a tiny factor in creating an environment that makes more people really go for it, that is my biggest, uh, joy.
Yeah.
Um, I often quote my grandfather who, when I grew up, he had some, sayings, and one of my favorite was, "Don't walk if you can run."
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a CEO who was always like, "We need to crawl before we walk, before we run." But I do like that idea of like, "Don't walk if you can run." Yeah.
And I would say that to a
Mm.
lot of women out there, at least try running.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might find out that you are both very good at it and that you enjoy it.
Anna, thank you so much for your insight, for taking us through your personal evolution, everything that you're doing. Really, I'm going to say around the intersection of business, but also humanity. So, thank you for that, folks. We have been joined by Anna Malmhake from Oriflame, and we're so fortunate that you were here with us today. And thank you again for your time, and we wish you the best of luck.
Richard, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to get to talk to you.